in your business lane, you focus on those three things and those three things only. If somebody comes along and goes, hey, I want to see if you want to talk about blah, blah, blah. No, if it's not on that list of three, the answer is just no. No, thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Lean Podcast, Ladies Empowerment and Alignment Network. I'm your host, Mahogany, and this is Season 2. Let's start with a short prayer. God, I pray this season speaks to every heart listening. May these stories ignite purpose, restore hope, and remind each woman that she is never alone. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Season 2 of the Lean Podcast. Today, we have with us Stephanie Owens. Today, she's going to be here talking to us about mindset and creating healthy boundaries. She is a wife, she's a mom, a real estate investor, and a therapist. She is also the CEO and mindset expert in world-class decision-making for Springboard to Wealth. Help me welcome Miss Stephanie Owens. Yay!
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, so much for being here. I know I gave a good introduction about who you are, but from your own mouth, can you share with us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, it really is fun to hear all of those different fractions of my life kind of congealed into that. And I think about kind of the road here, right? The road traveled to arrive at this moment in this time, and how everything just kind of stacks one on top of the next. And when I think about kind of the times that helped shape me to give me some of my best lessons, I would say I'm very fortunate in that some of my best lessons have come from talking with other people, as people have been generous in sharing their journeys and their lives, and seeing how we are just so much more alike than anything else. And when we can understand, we're kind of all just trying to figure this journey out. And I think for myself, some of my best lessons came from those hard moments, right? Those things where it was just this breakdown on the way to finding the breakthroughs. And I think really one of the earliest moments where I started to really put together what is the formula for my life that I really want to set myself out on. And I probably, like a lot of the people that are here and listening, I know a lot of you as well, Mahogany, is life had given me lots of opportunities to be responsible. Right? I was the oldest of a large family. It was often just, there was extra stuff kind of placed on my shoulders. It was easy for me to be the one in my friend group that kind of just, I'm fortunate that just clarity kind of comes. And so I think I showed up in a way that made people just think I was just going to know what to do. And that helped me build a lot of confidence, but it also created a lot of pressure. And I felt a lot of responsibility and a lot of isolation, a lot of alone, of like, who is there when I need help? Who is there when I am when I'm in need of a listening ear or advice? Because I think a lot of us, when we grow up or we find ourselves in life, being the one who is the strong one in the middle of the pillar, holding up the post, holding up the tent, it's easy to just find ourselves sort of drowning in that. And for me, I think I had built a certain amount of identity around being capable, being competent. But it wasn't until I started to really see my life get more complicated that I realized what I was doing was not sustainable. And I was really good at appearing to have it all together all the time. And I was really good at also never asking for help. I was really good at always saying yes. And the idea of saying, I can't do it, I'm at my limit, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, I need help, rung to my ears as a young woman as weakness. And I couldn't find my identity in a place where I wasn't the one who could just do it all. And so it wasn't until we had had our first baby, my husband and I were both working, but we had wanted to try and balance our schedule so that one of us would be home with the kids, with our daughter all the time. And so I had just gotten a new really big job, but I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I can do it all. I can be a mom of a 4-month-old. I can then also run this big it was a nonprofit for at-risk teens at the time. I can run this big nonprofit. I can balance it all out and make it and not sleep because of course I'm up with the baby all night long, but then I'm going into work early and then expecting myself to still be able to be composed and keeping it all together. And I just couldn't accept the idea that I couldn't have it all being done, and but I was torn. I was so torn between I felt like I wasn't doing my work well enough and I wasn't being a good enough mom, and yet I'm trying to keep it all together and pretend like I've got and just I'm drowning, but I don't want anybody to know. And it wasn't until a day where finally everything just collapsed in on me of I was trying to get all this stuff done at work. I was trying to get back home so my husband could go leave for work for himself. And I was late for him. And I was just having the sense of as much as I was running at a million miles an hour in every single direction and exerting so much, I was so tired and so burned out. I felt like I was doing nothing right and nothing was getting done. And just I felt like I was failing here and I was failing here and I was failing here. I wasn't taking care of myself. It was just a mess and I just broke. And fortunately, my husband was very loving and kind and understood and supported that understanding of it. But it was me that struggled, right? I was just not ready to be the person who was going to say, I have a limit. I have to say no. I need to say when I need help. I need to raise my hand. And so I started really taking a look at how am I going to do this well? And because I when I came home that day, I was sobbing in the driveway. Like this is not the life that I want. This is not what I'm showing. This is not how I want to show up. And this is not using my gifts the best that I can. But it
Was
came down to,
Oh no, I heard my thing beep. Was
Oh, yeah.
that your first breakdown where you're like, I cannot carry this load? Was that your first moment of clarity?
Yeah, the first because I think in any other spot where, there was I think at that point it was I think at the point at which I became a mom, there was a whole other lane of things that changed for me because I can multitask this and I can do that and I think there's a lot of women here who are high performers, like they're achievers and they're driven or they're just you just have the great capacity. You just have capacity. And I think I didn't understand that there was a limit to that capacity. But when it came to really looking at a big part of it for me was, is this what I want to model for my daughter? Do I want to see her do this? And what I realized that some part of it was coming from a place of strength for sure, because I definitely felt capable and competent and confident. But the fear-based part of it was, what is everybody going to think when they find out that I can't do it all? And I would hear myself saying yes when I wanted to say no. I would feel myself breaking inside, but not want to say, I need help, I'm struggling. Because in my mind, I felt like that would make me so weak. And some part of it too was, what is everyone else going to do if I'm not holding it all up? How much more of a problem am I creating for myself in all of that? And so, with all of that coming at me, I think it was the layer of understanding I wanted to show up and be an example for my daughter. What kind of woman do I want to show up as her model? And so it I think it layered in a sense of purpose behind all of the activity, where before the action had been for activity's sake, right? It had been for because I can feel competent, I can feel capable. But now the action was a distraction to a bigger priority for me, which was what kind of a mom do I want to be? And it was absolutely a breaking point, but one that served me. It definitely then caused me to go, all right, how am I going to start setting some better standards for myself? Because I knew myself well enough to know that if I was left myself to the heat of the moment when it was a choice between, am I going to say yes or no? Am I going to ask for help or not? That when I got to the breaking point, like I would have not, I'm not going to make the decision then. So I wanted to start saying to myself, how can I notice it sooner? And when I notice it sooner, what am I going to do? Which was in some ways harder because I would say, like, well, I can add one more thing. I can put in a thing on my plate. I'm not that stressed. I'm not that overwhelmed. But it was beneficial to start looking for what are the things I need to notice. And it required me to reevaluate my value outside of what am I doing? What is my value outside of my actions? Who and what is my value by just being present and showing up? And I started to look at, okay, who are some women I really acknowledge and admire who have some great boundaries? Who are the ones that aren't spreading themselves so thin? And I would watch them say, you know what? No, I'm not going to be able to make it. And I would be like, you're just allowed to say no? Like I had no idea you could just so casually do that.
How did you identify those women from a distance? If they're those, there's high performers, maybe it's like a mass where we don't really see it. How were you able to identify? Was it just from them saying no to things and you caught wind of it? Or how did you identify those things?
Yeah, it was definitely seeing some women that I noticed they just had this great, and one, they were also achievers, right? They were women who I really saw and respected, and they were doing significant things. And when I noticed that part of what, because I was starting to be like, okay, how can I go at this without me having to reinvent the wheel by myself? And I just noticed that they seemed to just so comfortably say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to make it. Or you know what, that timing isn't going to work for me. And they were just so cavalier about it. I'm like, how in the world are they doing that? And I think the other spot was I started paying attention to where did I start to get a knot in my stomach when I was about to say yes, when I really wanted to say no. And how could I start listening more to my own inner guidance? So it's like, okay, if I'm listening to my inner guidance, but then what do I do? And so I started looking for how can I very simply be able to set those boundaries. And I actually came up with a set of tools called the 4 no's. And it's like 4 different ways to say no in any situation. And each one is different depending on who I'm talking to. But it gave me the words in advance. It helped me to know, okay, when this pops up, I execute this plan. When this pops up, I do this. And it helped me to have a plan going into the situation so that I would know what to do, even when I was feeling that twinge of guilt or anxiety about saying no, or about shifting who was getting my time, who was getting my experiences. And so it took me really thinking about it. But I would say I spotted the women because they showed up and bigger because they were doing less.
Wow. Wow, that's so powerful. So just to recap us, you went from a new mom juggling all these things to having a breakdown to realizing, look, I have to have some boundaries here or I'm not going to make it. And
Hmm.
then identifying women who are doing things so you didn't have to recreate the will, and then creating your own formula using the 4 no's as one example of a tool.
Hmm.
Can you share with us a little bit about what those 4 no's look like and
For
like what
sure.
those situations are?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that they're all set aside for different levels of relationship. One is just is the simplest one and is one we use for strangers. And like I would find myself if I was out getting the mail and my mailman started talking to me, I would just sit there and talk, even though my kids were waiting inside for us to like eat lunch or play a game or something. So it's just like, how can I very simply, and it's just the absolute simplest one, and it's just no or no, thank you. And it was about understanding if this is a stranger or this is somebody who's a maybe robocalls me or some whatever it might be, is like no thank you, and just that simple. Even that felt impossible to me at a point because I was assigning the same level of expectation of connection and responsibility for the relationship, no matter how important that relationship actually was. And so it was a matter of first sorting through who is this? And if it's just a no, it's just like, no, no, or no, thank you. And that's it. And period, end of sentence. The second one was really helpful. It's called Simplify Sandwich. And Simplify Sandwich is great for acquaintances or people, kind of your friendly, ongoing relationships. People you're going to see maybe at your kids' sporting events, or like you're going to run into them at church, or like wherever the spots are, you're going to see them ongoing, but they're not a significant relationship, but they're those friendly, ongoing relationships. And Simplify sandwiches two very friendly phrases with the boundary in the middle. Because what I realized is a lot of what I was trying to do was avoid conflict or disappointing people or making people mad. And so what I realized is if I could sandwich it, It's sandwiched between I'm sorry and thank you. And then in the middle is simplify, because people can understand if we say I'm busy, everybody's busy. And everybody just sort of goes, I'm busy too. And it kind of feels more like a brush off. But when we say simplify, so how I like to say it is, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm making an effort to simplify right now, but thank you so much for thinking of me. It is, in fact, is way too many words. But when I was first getting good at setting that boundary, I needed to know that I was being abundantly kind. And I wanted to know in my heart, if they're upset about my boundary, it's because they were going to take advantage of my good nature anyway, because I knew for sure I was being abundantly kind. So simplify sandwich is, I'm so sorry. Thank you I'm making it hard to simplify right now, but thank you so much for thinking of me. And that one gets you a long way, because sometimes what I would find myself doing is making up stuff. And then I would have all these stacked invented reasons. And then I would feel out incongruent and I'm dishonest about why I was saying why I couldn't do this or couldn't do that. When in fact, we just get to say, no, thank you. But that helped me to feel like I was being friendly in those ongoing relationships without stacking some duplicitous stuff amongst it.
So an example of that could be, thank you so much for inviting me, and I really wish I could make it, but I can't. I'm sorry.
Yes. It might
Something
be
like
like,
that.
hey, yeah, like, would you be willing to would you be on this committee for the school, whatever? Would you be willing to take me to the airport? And if it's somebody, let's say if it's a committee, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm making an effort to simplify right now, but thank you so much for thinking of me.
Mm.
What I find a lot is people go, oh man, I got to do that. I need to, how are you doing this? How are you simplifying? Because people resonate with this idea of being overprogrammed and overloaded. And so it's a nice way to model simplicity as well, and a value of simplicity.
So the simplify is really letting them know that we are taking things off of our plate and we're trying to keep it simple,
Yes,
correct? Okay.
exactly. Exactly. So simple's in the middle. I'm sorry and thank you are on the ends.
I love
Yep.
that. I love that. Because I was like, let me know if I'm your last resort and then come back around to me. And then
Right.
they come back around and I'm
Of
like,
course they
oh,
do.
that didn't
Yeah.
work.
Yes, because when you want something done, ask a busy person, right? And the busy people are the ones who have the broad shoulders that say, pile it on, give me one more, throw it in the backpack. And before we know it, we are loaded down with a whole bunch of stuff that is not congruent to our own joy and our brilliance. And we're sacrificing all of this great capacity and talent and treasure and time and gifts on stuff that is not aligned with our brilliance. And that really is the thing that's so powerful, is once we take all of this great capacity, and right now most people are spreading it an inch wide and a mile deep.
Mm.
And when we know how to say no and be able to focus on the short list of things that actually matter, that you're actually passionate about, that serve your gifts and your brilliance, then all of what the results you can create, you take all of that great capacity and you focus it on an inch wide and a mile deep. Man, I have seen some fireworks come out of that, and some brilliance and the talent that was given to you that is being squandered by spreading it too thin. It's enough. It's enough. We
I
have to do
love
better.
that. I love that
Yeah.
so
Yep.
much. So we have the no thank you. We have the
Yep.
simplify sandwich. So
Good.
what's
Third
three?
one. The third one is called the invisible no, and it is for children or adults who act like children. So whether you're dealing, and this is a great one for the bullies and the master manipulators, the guilt trip people in your life. And so the invisible no is great because it starts with a yes. It says, yes, you can do that as soon as you, whatever. You'll notice as we get further along into the depth of the relationship, because our children, the adults in our lives who act like children, are sometimes the ones who maybe we have a deeper relationship with. So this gives you a little bit more flexibility with the words you'll use, but gives you the same structure and template, but it honors the relationship. Each one is more, the no thank you is for the strangers, because you don't need to have the same value and honoring of the relationship as you do when you're talking to your children or adults who act like children. The other piece of the adults who act like children is they're not going to just listen to your no. They're going to keep coming at you with all the extra things. So, how that sounds, I'll say it again, is yes, you can da 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 as soon as you da da da. You fill in the blanks. So, for example, let's say a kid is, can I go outside and play? We would do, no, you need to unload the dishwasher. When we lead with no, now we have this tenuous tug of war. When we start with yes, you can, as soon as you unload the dishwasher. And so it helps them see how they can get what they want, and it lowers the resistance so we have less of a chance for a tug of war. And it's harder for them to feel tense or resistant about it because you haven't actually told them no. You've actually told them yes. Yes, you can. I'm going to go outside right now. Yes, you can, as soon as you unload the dishwasher. But everyone's outside already. And you can go outside as soon as you unload the dishwasher. And so it's a way to give them the yes and hold the boundary without, we fatigue as parents when we're in a battle of no, I told you no. I love it when my kids would be like, why can't I go outside? You tell me why. Why can't you go outside? Because I didn't unload the dishwasher. You got it. Let me know. Good luck. The way this shows up for adults who act like children is this is especially good with the ones in our lives who are the adults, that they have this way of their, typically these things show up most with where you are the one who is hyper functioning and the other person is under functioning, massively under functioning, and they benefit so much from you over functioning and hyper functioning. And so it serves them to keep you in that spot because they don't have to do anything. And so it could be, let's say it might be your mom saying, can you come over? Can you make sure and get grandma over? Can you make sure and go over and take care of grandma this weekend and help her rake up the leaves? Yes, I'd be happy to do that as soon as we find a schedule where everybody in the family is partaking in that. And so, or it may be, will you make sure and will you take care of my rent this month? Yes, I'd be happy to talk with you about how I can help with that once we get a chance to sit down and really look at your whole budget. So whatever that might be is a way that we set boundaries, and then they'll be like, but I need it right now. Yeah, and we can talk about that as soon as we get a chance of looking at your whole budget.
Ooh, I
But
love it.
I'm going to be so late. I'm going to get kicked out. All the more reason that it's a really good idea for us to sit down and talk about your budget. Sounds really important. And so it's this idea of when you find yourself in a tug of war with somebody, we want to yank it back. But when we add slack to the rope, yeah, we can talk about that as soon as you do this. Yep, we can talk about that as soon as you do that. Yep, we can talk about that. Then it keeps you from being an easy person to just be an automatic yes, especially when it's coming from guilt. We never make decisions from a place of guilt or obligation. There's nothing but trouble on the other side of those decisions.
Ooh, I love that so much, Stephanie. I'm about to use that one today.
Yeah, it's a handy one. It's a handy one. And really the thing that's key about that is to just repeat it. Like there's nothing you need to improve about your no. It's already good enough. My rule is I'll only repeat myself 3 times. And if I've repeated myself 3 times, I'd be like, seems like we're at an impasse here. I don't think anything more good is going to come from us talking about it more. You let me know when you want to reopen the conversation. And then I'm just done with it. Just leave, hang up, walk out of the room, whatever you need to do.
Oh, I love it. So what is 4?
The 4th one is called the positive no. The positive no actually came from a book called The Positive No by a guy named William Ury, and he was fantastic he would help like negotiate peace treaties and major labor disputes. This was like kind of his thing. And the positive no is reserved for our most valued and prized relationships. I've seen this be not only within our personal relationships where we really want to value and show care for the relationship, but we need to set a boundary and we need to say no. It also works really well in business. It works really well with clients because we're honoring the relationship and setting boundaries. So we're not over providing to our clients and then ending up in an imbalance of that or being unprofitable. And so the formula for that is yes, no, yes. The first yes is a yes to your priority that is driving your need to set the boundary. The no is the boundary. And then the second yes is a yes to the relationship. So this might sound like, I remember one time one of my friends was having a destination wedding in Hawaii, and she asked me to be in her wedding. I would have loved to have been in her wedding, but our finances did not allow for me to make that trip and to spend all the money and to do the things. And so I was really struggling and really torn between, one, I was embarrassed that we didn't have enough money. So I was like, I didn't like that. I wanted to pretend that wasn't true. Two, I love her and I wanted to show up and be there for her and be able to be present for that. And I also I very much care about my responsibility to the financial well-being of my family, right? So I was really torn and I wasn't sure. She's going to be mad. She's going to be super disappointed. How am I going to make this up to her? And so I found myself wanting to kind of almost overdo. But then when I thought about it, I'm like, okay, what am I really saying yes to? In telling her no, I'm saying yes to the priority to make my family's financial needs the priority. I'm making that my yes. My yes is I need to take care of my family and our financial needs at this time. The no is, for that reason, I'm not going to be able to be there for you on your big day. I'm so sorry. Then the yes is a yes to the relationship, which opens up a very simple question, which is, what else can I do to show you that I care? And so if we put that all together, it's like, I love to start these with a 5-word phrase. I've been thinking more about your wonderful destination wedding plans. As I look at our finances, I just am like, we just cannot afford the extra expenses. And I have to make my family's financial needs a priority right now. For that reason, I'm so sorry to say I'm not going to be able to be there for you on your big day. What else can I do to show you that I care?
Mm.
And we pack a lot into short, crisp bullet points because I don't know about you guys, but I would tend to, when I'm uncomfortable, when I didn't want to disappoint somebody, I'd be like, hey, I need to talk to you about something and I'm not sure how to bring it up. And so I'm not really sure what to say, but I want to make sure that you really hear me because it's important to me that you know that I really love you. The preamble goes on for 15 minutes and we're nowhere. And it feels that much more uncertain. And maybe our message of care gets lost in it because we haven't thought it through and really given ourselves a chance to communicate how we really feel about both the place that we need to set the boundary and how much we care about the other person. And the other thing, so it really helped me to have a crisp beginning. That's where I've been thinking more about helped me start. And when I start, then I can go. But if I don't have a good way to start, man, I was all over the board. I was just mess and just babbling all over the place, unhelpful. The other spot where this is really crucial is in the what else can I do to show you that I care? Pause, stop talking. I know for me, I would find myself wanting to then solve the problem and to solve my guilt of not being able to go. What else can I do to show you that I care? I can give you a really great bridal shower and I'll be happy to take you to the airport and I'll watch your dog and blah, blah. I'm listing. Does she even want those things? No. And very often the right people, when you have the right people in your life, when you take the time to formulate a really, really clear, loving, caring, boundaried message, they will hear your heart and they'll be like, oh, which is what she said. She's like, I'm so bummed, but I totally get it. I appreciate you being so kind and explaining it to me. They don't want a big bridal shower. They don't need you to take them to the airport. They don't need you to watch their dog. But we fill it in with all of this action to try and soothe when really what we're looking for is connection. And the way we can communicate to the people who matter most to us creates the connection. And that's what we're looking for anyway. And then we don't end up with our schedules jam-packed with all these things that we've committed to doing because we feel bad for saying no. So it's a nice way to organize your thoughts in advance, to make sure you're saying what you really want to say. You might practice it a little bit. You can even write it down to make sure that you're really communicating because these are the people who matter most to you. And so it's worth taking the time.
I love that so much. I'm going to use a couple of those in my own life, seriously. What is something that us ladies can do who have already put too much on our plates?
Yeah.
How do you start deplating that? So you're in the moment in your car crying, like, I can't do this. Like, how do you deplate everything?
Yep. It's perfect. Perfect question. There's two ways. One is we can start The first thing is, let's not add any more to the plate. And the way you do that is you just decide right now you are saying no to everything, even stuff you want to do. I call it being on a yes cleanse. Like we're just not saying yes to anything for a week.